Hello, this is the Vietnam Social News Update for October 22, 2025. Date of news coverage, October 22, 2025. Politics. In Hanoi, attention is turning sharply toward the upcoming session of the National Assembly, where lawmakers will review a sweeping agenda of legislative reforms and high-profile personnel changes. For many observers, this session is less about routine government business and more about signaling a deeper phase of institutional renewal. Even as key nominations for state president, prime minister, and parliamentary chair hover in the background, the broader message is one of aligning governance structures with a rapidly modernizing society. The backdrop to these changes includes growing public expectations for government responsiveness and accountability. Over the past year, citizens and civil society groups alike have made clearer demands for transparency and service delivery. The leadership is now positioning the upcoming assembly session as a battleground for reform. Streamlining administrative layers, upgrading digital platforms, and tightening oversight. These moves are as much about perception as they are about substance. Vietnam's leaders are aware that governance credibility will matter as much as economic growth. At the same time, the political dynamic reflects continuity rather than rupture. While reform language is strong, the dominant role of the Communist Party remains central. The balancing act is evident: how to project modern, agile governance without unsettling the core framework that has underpinned stability. In many ways, Vietnam's political journey today is about reinforcing the legitimacy of the existing system by making it better, not replacing it. Economy. Now, let's move to the economy. Vietnam's economic trajectory continues to attract global attention, as the country reports solid growth despite headwinds in export markets and global supply chain disruption. The government has recently reaffirmed a target of achieving at least 10% GDP growth in 2026, signaling a shift from incremental expansion toward accelerated transformation. In parallel, efforts to move up the value chain into high-tech manufacturing, green energy, and services are gaining momentum as the older, low-cost model matures. This ambition is tempered by structural challenges that remain hard to shake. Exports of labor-intensive products such as textiles and footwear are facing headwinds, especially with trade tensions rising and input costs climbing. Moreover, Vietnam still struggles with skills gaps, infrastructure bottlenecks, and reliance on foreign investment in certain sectors. Policymakers are therefore prioritizing private sector dynamism, technological adoption, and digital infrastructure, while also encouraging deeper linkages between domestic firms and global value chains. Financial markets in Vietnam are showing signs of maturity. Investor sentiment has improved in response to stronger policy signals and the country's improved integration with international markets. Nonetheless, some economists caution that headline growth figures do not guarantee long-term resilience. Sustainable expansion will hinge on regulatory consistency, institutional capability, and inclusive investment across regions. Vietnam's challenge now is to turn growth momentum into durable structural change. Society and culture. Next, in society and culture, Vietnam's social fabric is evolving in real time as urbanization, generational change, and cultural expression converge. In major cities such as Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, mobility patterns are shifting rapidly, signaled most prominently by the plan to ban petrol-powered motorbikes in central urban zones by 2026. This move isn't just about cleaner air or traffic. It reflects a broader paradigm shift in how Vietnamese cities see themselves: modern, connected, tech-savvy. But the policy also raises significant questions about employment disruption in the motorbike sector and the transition costs for households. Meanwhile, cultural confidence is on the rise. Vietnam is increasingly asserting itself on the global scene through digital media, film, fashion, and design. Young creators are drawing on both local roots and international influence, reshaping what it means to be Vietnamese in the 21st century. The creative economy is emerging as a strategic asset rather than a fringe sideshow, in policy and in practice. At the same time, there's growing emphasis on ensuring that cultural growth is inclusive, that the benefits of modernization are felt in provincial towns and rural communities as much as in the capital. Underlying these shifts is the recognition that social transformation must keep pace with economic and political change. Modern culture, mobility, and identity are part of the same equation as growth and governance. For Vietnam, retaining tradition while embracing innovation is no longer optional. It's necessary. The big question now is how the country manages that balance in a way that keeps people connected, engaged, and empowered. International relations. In the arena of international relations, Vietnam is walking a nuanced path between major powers and rising regional influence. On one hand, cooperation with China continues to deepen, particularly in infrastructure development, trade, and border coordination. But Hanoi is also deliberately broadening its diplomatic engagements, seeking stronger links with the United States, Europe, and dynamic economies in the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. The aim is clear: diversify partnerships and avoid over-reliance on any single power bloc. The country's diplomatic posture is gaining traction. Vietnam has recently signaled that it wants to play a more active role in digital governance, cybersecurity, and regional connectivity, not just manufacturing and export-based growth. Hosting upcoming international events in these domains underscores its ambitions. At the same time, inclusion in higher-tier global financial markets and improved investor ratings are bolstering Vietnam's global presence in economic and diplomatic terms. However, deeper engagement brings complexity. As Vietnam steps onto a larger stage, balancing sovereignty, national interests, and global expectations becomes more intricate. Trade frictions, technology standards, and geopolitical fault lines are part of this new terrain. The success of Vietnam's foreign policy strategy will not just be judged by more treaties or events, but by how well it converts global linkages into domestic gains, stronger firms, better jobs, and more resilient networks. Thank you for listening to the Vietnam Social News Update. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And see you again tomorrow. This news summary is based on publicly available reports and rewritten uniquely for Vietnam Social News. VietnamNews.com is the official web address of Vietnam Social News. We are an independent platform, not affiliated with Vietnam News Agency or any government-owned media outlet.